Okay, everyone, y'all want some pizza, help yourself, we've got pizza and lemonade and water. I think we're breakfast, no wait. Yeah. Yes, we're in the department. Apparently other departments were prepared and saying, so. Talk. I didn't. I mean, yeah, exactly, so, like, interviews ourselves, and talk about what you can do with this, like, obviously, you're sort of a. Example, yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the curriculum, internship opportunities, research opportunities, see if there are questions. But let's keep on to, yeah. I'm very like.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not like, are you? Or,
No.
full-time?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Represented. Yeah, Nick is supposed to come on Zoom.
I saw his email, yeah.
But I realized he's inviting, so I don't know if he did the time. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll sign up.
He doesn't. Why?
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know if Gabby's gonna come or not. So I saw post on Facebook that she just started teaching at the Y. It's good for her and all that.
Oh, that's
Yeah, Gabby had double knee replacement. So she's been in recovery a couple months.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like I've seen people in that matter.
Did you get my email?
I haven't checked. In
Okay.
a minute, but yeah.
Pretty much, sorry, I'm with the Navy now, and I'm so much more points.
Yeah, probably if you can do similar to stuff.
Yeah, so that's why,
People right now, are both.
and they're gonna be,
And they're both going on it. So.
I'm available, so with. In all the naval base Norfolk, which is, took me only 13 minutes.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
So I couldn't even.
Yeah, I mean, I have-
Today, I have the one. But I got.
It's small this year.
Position of.
But my other guy, he was small.
Navy legal, and I got approved, like I'm approved by the Navy. I'll have this
Bigger.
John's Navy, there's. You want to drive, you're not gonna be free time.
So like, I do consulting work for a publisher, like work on online stuff, and like. You can clear that direct next to pay.
So as soon as I got that, this when I emailed you, a few months ago, I'm like, I need a new person to talk about it. I know. Oh, it's
No, overwhelmed. Oh my god. Like my poor little kid just gets sick, like. She's giant. I know, well, that's why I feel sick, but. But believe it or not, when I was, when we interviewed Robert, who's been here for a year now, I was, 37 years pregnant with her, maybe you see the next. Like I always remember when we interviewed Robert, it was a week the day before she was born.
But I did write in my mail, I know I did ask the communication of Azure Department because covering more than one class.
I think we can do two with semester.
Okay, so I know that you don't need to more.
Right, so we can probably do one of the inversion. Okay, wait, we'll do
Whichever I am in my mail.
I believe if you do that normal, or have a and probably you change the name, that's what you've done before. Right?
It's the one that has actually, I've done this, I can, I've done both. That being said, though, I work in it's an interest, like, oh my.
Okay, then I can give you one. Then if you didn't have to.
I knew that you work in.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I'm your, like, see what everybody else needs, I don't mind, whatever.
Well, it's sort of like, one of my in-person people is like willing to do, online, like maybe you could such a football. You could pick up the like online.
I mean, offline.
Yeah. And you are this summer, you're on, and the
I'm
fall.
one.
Yeah, I think one
Yeah.
each.
One each.
Oh, here comes Debbie. Oh. Debbie's coming. We weren't sure if you were coming or not.
What's
I said we weren't sure if you were coming or not.
Yeah.
Now you have a chair.
I sent you a message.
Okay. This is me not checking anything. Alrighty. And I don't know if Nick's gonna be able to sign on or not, so it's a little laughter. So if he does, great. If not, that's all right. Alright. Did y'all want to give any sort of intro or you want me to just dive in? Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Please, if you haven't gotten through the great chat, do that. We are part of the psychology department. We have all of our full-time faculty members here and one of our adjunct faculty. We may have another adjunct faculty member come on Zoom, but he's in Hawaii, so if he doesn't, like, who could blame him? But we don't have anything really formal planned other than just chatting about our program, answering questions y'all might have. And so we'll start by just introducing ourselves, our areas of expertise, and then we'll go through and talk about the program a little bit more. So I'm Dr. Taryn Myers. I'm currently serving as department chair, and my PhD is in clinical psychology. So I teach a bunch of different classes for us. I teach things like psychopathology, psychology in the law, clinical psych, psych of gender. And then we have core courses we rotate through as well. So I think that's all you need to know about me for reference. I also do research with students, and we actually have a formal class students can take to do research with us.
Right. Hi, everybody. My name is Rilid Samaduro, and I am an adjunct faculty, which means that I have a primary job elsewhere, and then I supplement the faculty that teach here at your department, and teach anything that is needed throughout your careers. Show of hands, who is a psychology major already? Or thinking about psychology?
Nice.
Have you taken introduction to psychology? Yes, okay. So that's usually what I teach is intro to psych. And that's a great course, even if you're not sure, if you don't want to be a psychology major later on, it's going to come in handy in many industries. My background is that I had originally thought that I was going to be a clinical psychologist, and so I have a master's degree in clinical counseling psychology from Francis Marion University in South Carolina. Then I came to ODU. I was a LPC, a licensed professional counselor, for a little while, practiced in a couple of environments, and then changed directions and got a PhD in applied experimental psychology, which this program no longer exists at ODU. Now it's called health psychology. But what this prepares you to do is do research primarily. So it's very, very different. When you say a psychologist, many people think clinical psychology. There's many other types of psychologists. We were just chatting about there's industrial organizational psychologists, various other types of professions that you can have. So I've experienced many of these career fields. After graduating, I was a biostatistician for Sincera Healthcare, which is a healthcare system here in Virginia and Northeastern North Carolina, and did medical research. So a PhD in research psychology field prepares you very well to do a lot of statistics and research, and it could be translated into medical research. My current role right now is a data scientist at the Naval Station Norfolk. So I'm a government employee working at safety issues for the United States Navy, using machine learning and artificial intelligence to predict safety events for the United States Navy. And there's experimental psychologists on my team who are active duty. So you can also be an active duty psychologist. You can serve in Navy, Army, and other branches of the DoD as a psychologist and get a lot of benefits, student loan pays, etc. So I'm happy to talk more about that if anyone's interested. Originally from Bulgaria, and that's it.
And just before we move on to Dr.
Yeah.
Jackson, if anyone in the back wants to come on in, there are plenty of seats and there's also food, so make sure you grab some. We will throw us off.
I'm Dr. Craig Jackson. My training and research interests are in social psychology, social and personality psychology. So I have, before I came here, I had some experience while I was in graduate school doing applied research. So I do teach a lot of the applied courses like IO psychology, industrial organizational. Teach theories of motivation, intro courses, of course, history of psychology. I've taught that several times. So I did a little bit of work in grad school at a school board in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I had to do some program evaluation. I would do a little bit of statistics. And statistics for school board members primarily in the public. So it was a little bit of a blend between like higher level math statistics and percentages and averages and percentages and a readable format. So it's kind of a good blend of like financing and research for the public interest. So that was kind of cool. And then I finished up my PhD and figured out I didn't want to do that so much because that was the 9-to-5 job, the benefits, but 2 weeks of vacation wasn't enough for me. So academics lifestyle seemed like the way to go, and so I pursued like the teaching academic life, that career path. So it's not for everybody. It's with limited number of opportunities. There's a challenge with landing a job and keeping it and getting the right opportunities. So it's not easy, but it worked for me. But I like to teach students in such a way that that's not the expectation that you have to want to be an academic psychologist at all. So there's lots of different career paths and opportunities beyond what you see here. So we don't even have like half of the fields. So just we're here to try to help you navigate paths if you wanted to explore things other than what you see here. You can ask questions, we'll try to answer them the best we can. But yeah, that's who I am and my time. So,
Great, I'm Dr. Robert Ariel. My background is in experimental psychology, specifically cognitive psychology. I'm teaching courses mostly in like the biological type clusters, so think cognitive psychology, patient perception, and biological psychology. So as well as like the method and stat courses. So those are what I'm often teaching. There are opportunities to work with me in my research lab. So we have an active lab with lots of ongoing projects. Typically focused on applying what we know about cognitive psychology to improve learning and performance. So think about like how do we improve student learning? We take what we know about memory, attention, and the metacognitive processes, which is for having a background in metacognition, and try to improve student learning outcomes. And we also are interested in learning across the lifespan and how to improve older adults' memory. So there are active projects in my lab now focused on applying cognition and education to health and improving health literacy. So helping older adults better remember details about their medication so that they can safely adhere to their medication. So lots of opportunities for that. They gain experience in my lab, and that provides also practical skills. So you can learn how to program experiments, how to do statistical analyses. A lot of these things that will help you like in industry and apply that. If you decide to go that route and prepare you for graduate school if you decide you want to be in graduate school. It's good to get research experience because programs are looking that you have experience, and also using it's strong letter recommendations. I really get to know you, you work one-on-one with you. So lots of practical skills there.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabby Martorell. I have to say, I keep looking over there.
Yeah, sorry, I've been speaking.
It's years of COVID. But I would encourage you to take advantage of opportunities. So I'm a developmental and evolutionary psychologist. By the way, for those of you who are considering a major in psychology, don't tell faculty outside of this room, but it's the best major. I have moved away from an active research program and primarily provide support to some of the grants around here, as well as write textbooks. So I teach all of the developmental sequences, so infant, child, adolescent, adulthood, and aging. I teach cross-cultural, I teach evolutionary, and we all teach intro, right? Scientific literacy. So intro is where, how many of you guys have taken intro? Is that where you can hear a little taste of how awesome it is? But basically, for those of you who are interested in going on to graduate school in psychology, participation in research or in Sci-Chi, or we often take students to DPA to present, or you present Forte. Those are really, really great opportunities to give you a more competitive application. For those of you who aren't interested in the research track, or you just want additional stuff on top of it. For example, Dr. Myers teaches an internship course every spring. There are study abroad opportunities. When was it, 6 years ago?
It's been a while.
21 students. to,
2017.
Paris, London, and Amsterdam, and it was so much fun, so much fun. And currently, and as long as they keep allowing me to do so, I'm teaching one class each summer at Harlexton University in the UK. And you know what, there's other study abroad programs too. It doesn't really have to be in psychology. But I would just encourage you to take advantage. Certainly you're here to learn, right? And you're here to go to classes and you're here to get your grades, but you're also here to kind of open your mind and your horizons to the big world out there, particularly after being kind of locked up for like 3 years. I tell you, I never appreciated something as much as I do now. And I never had such conflicted feelings about Zoom before as well. I think that's it for me.
All right, and since everybody else gave like a little more detailed description, I should tell you that prior to coming here, during my training, I worked in a variety of clinical settings. So started out in a training clinic, worked in several hospital settings, worked at the VA, and my area of expertise is eating disorders and body image. So for example, right now, the students in my lab are running a study about stress and body image and how participating in certain athletic activities might influence how you think about your body. And so, yeah, these are, we'll see how old these are, because I think the slideshow still says VWC, so it's been a minute. But while we're talking, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up our curriculum, because a couple different folks have mentioned some of the class opportunities we have. And we now offer both a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science in psychology. Yeah, folks in the back, please come in, have a seat. You're not going to distract us. Get some food. I'm an eating disorder researcher, so I'm always telling people to eat. My lab was always first in line to get food in grad school. So, but yeah, just to show you some of the variety we have for our curriculum. So we've mentioned intro. We actually broke our intro into 2 courses so that you all have more time to dig into some of the topics. We used to teach intro in 1 semester, and it was like a day a topic. You barely go through stuff. So even with 2 semesters, sometimes I feel like we're flying through it. So, and then the way our major is set up reflects the American Psychological Association's guidelines for undergraduate psychology. So we try to follow national standards and get you all really prepared to go out into the world. So every single major takes a course on scientific literacy. This teaches you how to interpret what you hear out there, mostly from the media, but also social media, and be an informed consumer of information. And then everyone takes a developmental course. So one of those courses that Dr. Marderall mentioned, everyone takes an applied course. That would either be with me or Dr. Jackson, or sometimes one of our adjuncts as well. So Dr. Marderall has taught psych and the law for us, for example, beforehand. And then those biological courses would probably be with Dr. Ariel. And then the social and theoretical foundations, again, largely with Dr. Jackson, maybe 1 or 2 with me. And then we've added a diversity course at the recommendation of the APA. And so we offer a couple within our major, but we've also expanded so that you're able to take those diversity courses outside of our major as well. Because we think that if you're going out into the world with some of the psychology degree, you should understand more than just yourself, right? You should understand different kinds of people. You get to take electives. We have a capstone. And then if you do the BS, you just do a little more in the biological foundations. You take 2 courses there instead of 1. And then you're going to take math stats. You're going to take
our research sequence. So in our research methods and stats course, you write a proposal. And then in our Psych 480, our original research project, you actually do your own research project. And now that being said, those are not exclusive to the BS. So if you want to do the BA and do those, you are definitely welcome to, but they're required for people who want to get the Bachelor's of Science. And then you take some natural science courses, and we guide each student towards those courses based on sort of your own interests. So for example, I have a major right now who's taking the Age of Oil because they were interested in sort of human environment interaction, that type of thing. A lot of our students will take physiology, but you know, we've definitely had students take animal behavior in the past. In fact, one of our alums is actually an employee who works in the large mammal program at the Georgia Aquarium. So she works with the dolphins and the sea lions, which is really cool. And it's so funny because like all the bio students want to do that. No, but a lot of them, and it's like we got a psych major. So yeah, so maybe we could do that next, talk about some of the career options that are available for folks in psych. Again, I think as we mentioned previously, a lot of people think you can only be a therapist. And there are so many more options for what you can do with your psych degree. So some of our students will go into education. A lot of our students end up working in business settings. Fortune 500 companies love us because we do have that basic understanding of stats, of how to think critically, of writing, of the human mind. Some of the social psyche stuff, like I don't like to say we know how to manipulate people, but we kind of know how to manipulate people, right? Or advertise to them, market to them well. Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's really interesting because there's a lot of cool social psych research about that. So those of you who have taken intro psych, Albert Bandura, the Bobo doll study guy, he actually later in his life did a lot of research on incorporating characters into telenovelas or radio programs to decrease stigma. So for example, introducing an HIV positive character on a telenovela and did like large scale population surveys and found that it reduced the stigma related to people who are HIV positive. So there are lots of growth areas in psychology. Environmental psych is a growing field. Aging. Yeah, geropsychology, I was gonna say, the baby boomers are aging, so that's a really good area to look into. And just to give a couple examples of alums, we have an alum who's working for the Navy in their office of sexual assault prevention, helping them with grants. Other alums who are in grad school, working for nonprofits, but some of you might have other examples.
School psychology.
Oh, yeah.
The big one, we've had students go on to master's programs in school psychology, where you're interacting with parents and students, trying to help develop individualized learning plans, education plans. So we have a lot of overlaps with our major and some of the other ones on campus. Education, there's some good connections, certainly bio and psych make good combinations of majors and minors.
Yeah, because we get a lot of experience, so
Sociology.
And a lot of those folks, at least that I've had, go on to work for nonprofits like domestic violence shelters and things along those lines, or child advocates within the court system.
Social work.
Exactly, yeah, and that's something that, again, we don't want to like knock other majors, but I think a lot of people think because we have a social work BS here, which is great, the BSW is great, that you could only go on to a graduate program in social work if you do the minor or the undergrad in social work, but in fact, we've had psych majors who go on to social work grad school and are doing that as well.
And just grad schools in general, if you do want to get a graduate degree, a lot of them only require a certain number of core courses, so you can sometimes go from one type of minor to a graduate program, even without majoring in that field, as long as you have a good base of courses and have that interest and some additional experiences and things. It's not easy, but you can mix and match a little bit from undergrad to graduate, a little bit of overlap in the coursework.
There was someone in my graduate PhD clinical psychology program whose degree had been in library science. And she was working in a library that had a program where they worked with folks with schizophrenia for job reintegration and got really interested in it. And now she is a big time schizophrenia researcher. So you just never know sort of where things can lead you. I mean, both Dr. Martorell and I thought we were going to be veterinarians. So, you know, things could obviously change.
One of my colleagues in graduate school, PhD program, she worked at a bank before coming to grad school.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think she had an undergraduate psych degree, but, you know, I think the banking industry was not for her. So she went to go on and get a graduate degree, but.
Yeah.
I don't know like the difference in the Bachelor of Arts and the Bachelor of Science in Psychology. Can you explain that?
Sure, yeah, the biggest difference is in the BS, you're gonna do that research for sure. You're required to plan, propose, and implement your own research study, and then we have you defend it in essentially the same style you would do a master's thesis. Again, that's an option in the BA, but all the BS students have to do that. And then the other thing is you do a lot more sort of natural science-y related stuff. So you're required to take some courses in natural science, you take statistics, and then you take more than one of our sort of biopsych focused classes. Yeah, and I think this is a really important point. I've had several students since we implemented the BS think, if I want to go to grad school, I have to do the BS. And it depends on the type of grad school you go to, right? If you're thinking, I really love research and that's what I want to do with my life, the BS is definitely a way to go. But if you're thinking, I want to go to like a social work degree or more of a clinical counseling master's, then the BA is probably going to satisfy everything you need. So yeah, that's pretty new. We implemented that in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. We voted on it on Zoom. So.
Yeah. I would add, that is the whole point of why we included now a class on scientific literacy. Because even if you're not going the research route, you need to be a good consumer of information, and scientific information is complex often. And having the kind of skills so that you understand what's good research, what's bad research, what can you take from that and use and apply practically. How does the media spin it? Because they do. And so the whole point of that scientific literacy class is so that even those people who are not interested in the research route still have a working knowledge of how it works.
Is there a difference in jobs depending on what route you take?
Yeah.
I
Go
was gonna say
ahead.
not. I was gonna say a lot of universities don't have a choice one or the other. You either get one or you get the other. In the University of Florida, it was an actions of science, but the curriculum was a little different. There was our research methods course was in a particular field, and some other genetics stats, whether it's from stats department, which here we have to have our own research methods stats course. So I would say there's not a whole lot of difference. BAs sometimes aren't good enough to get you into graduate programs that could be more research oriented. But you might have to take an additional stats course somewhere in there to prepare yourself. So you kind of do need to look ahead a little bit and decide what you would like to do. If it's the counseling route, then the BA probably is just fine. But if you do want to go into a research type of graduate degree, PhD program, where you're kind of doing a thesis, dissertation, and publishing scientific articles, then yeah, you might want to look at the BS instead of the.
And I think there is if you're not going to go to another schooling, you're just going to graduate. I think I know that the skill set as we're hiring in the Navy right now, we're looking a bachelor's degree in anything, but you need to know statistics. So data scientists, data analysts, business analysts, any BI, and those are the jobs that are out there right now. You need to have some, and actually in our department, we even require calculus one in statistics. So it would be more marketable from industry perspective. If you're not going to go to graduate, you're just done, and that's all the education you want in bachelor's. The science part of it is what's going to be the marketable out there. It would be hard. I had a hard time finding a job with just a bachelor's in psychology. I have a BA. My bachelor's didn't have the science component to it, and then I realized I wasn't going to get a job, and then I went and got a master's degree. Because you're not you can be licensed with a bachelor's degree. And that's the biggest issue. To be a licensed professional counselor, school psychologist, these all require master's degree.
there is like a weird licensure you can get in Virginia with a bachelor's, but you basically do so much supervised hours, you may as well just go get it.
Go get a master's, yeah, and you can now become one too, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, really good question. And actually related to that, I should talk about our internship program. So we mentioned that, so it's a 4-credit course. It's less intensive than some of the other majors. So if you're familiar with business or CJ, they do like 40 hours a week. We do 10 hours a week. It's usually sort of like a volunteer basis because we're often working with nonprofits. But basically, whatever you're interested in, if I don't already have a site, I will help you find it. But just to give you some of the examples of our people intern, we send a lot of folks to Chesapeake Bay Academy, which if you're not familiar, it's right behind our softball field. It's a school for kids with learning differences. So everyone there has a learning disorder and or ADHD and or is on the autism spectrum. And so lots of really cool opportunities there. I have people working in private practice. Actually, for the first time this semester, I have someone working in a behavioral care. It's essentially the equivalent of patient first, where people can walk in off the street, get seen that day, which is very cool. Western Tidewater Community Services Board, working with people with severe mental illness, working in hospice or in local assisted living facilities. And then this year, for the first time, I had someone who was really interested in sports psychology. So she kind of created her own split between a national organization, and she's doing some really cool projects for them. She's like observing our softball team while they practice and giving them feedback. And then she also worked with a former adjunct of ours, Scott Sauter, who's the neuropsychologist for the Norfolk Admirals, the hockey team. So she went to games with him. So basically, if I don't have it already, I will find it for you. I will create it and help you. So in the past, for example, we've had research-based internships. So if you're thinking you do want to go that research route, those can be really good. And those, again, look really good on your resume for grad school. And I would say, whether you're going to do the BA or the BS, a lot of what you do is you sell yourself on what skills you have, right? In any cover letter you write, I have the ability to think critically. I've done this, this, and this, and that becomes really important. And we support you for that. We write letters of rec. I feel like I'm forever trying to talk to people about options for grad school. I think it's a real misconception that if you want to do therapy, for example, you have to get a doctorate. You don't. You can get a master's. You can be an LPC. You can do a degree in social work. And for most people, if you just want to do therapy, that's much more time and cost effective. You're going to get out there. So like one of our students who I think graduated maybe my second year here, Kim McKinney, she, so this is like 10 years ago, she already owns her own practice with other therapists in it because she just did a master's. So, you can move pretty quickly with things like that if you don't want to do the research component of it.
If you're interested in anything to do with business, world of work, IO psychology, industrial organizational master's degree is usually sufficient to earn 6 figures.
I was gonna say, that's where the money is.
Work in like a human resources type department, doing assessments and job selection tests and things. Or you can work as a consultant, working your own private business, and work with larger organizations, giving recommendations for, improving worker morale or attitudes, or reducing turnover, productivity, or increasing productivity.
A lot of departments now are renaming themselves as people analytics, so that would be the key term to search for an IO folks. ODU has a PhD in the organizational psychology, and those are my colleagues and your friends still, and having to talk to anyone about any of them.
Other questions about the major, about the classes?
Should a student look for if they're going to pursue a grad degree of accreditation?
Oh, good question. So it depends. If you're doing a master's, APA does not accredit individual master's programs. You want to go to an accredited university. And what I typically recommend is try to avoid the for-profits. And you can Google pretty quickly to figure out which those are. Those are the ones who advertise a lot, right? Because they have the money to do it. Just because the for-profit universities don't always treat their students well because they're more concerned about making money than making good people to go out into the world. Whereas most universities who are not for profit, like VWU, are going to be focused more on the student experience. Now, if you're going to go the PhD route, particularly if you're going like a clinical or counseling, you do want to make sure that's APA accredited, because a lot of places will not let you get licensed unless your PhD is from one of those.
And look at the match, I know this is far advanced, but once you get a PhD in clinical psychology, it's different than PhD in other fields. You then have to have an internship and be
Mhm.
placed, just like a medical student gets matched a location. You then have to spend a year or how long at a residency essentially.
Yep.
And a good graduate school will first accept very few students, would offer PhD student waivers. Many good schools do not require you to pay tuition if you're accepting in their PhD program. And then have to have good match rate. So if they graduated 6 people, you know, you want all 6 to have matched to on their
Right,
their internship is. And there's local university here, and I don't want to badmouth anyone, but they have a very high acceptance rate. It's a for-profit university, high acceptance rate, I don't know about graduation rate, but definitely high acceptance rate and very low match rate, as low as 50%, which means that half of their students, they finish their PhD in clinical psychology and they do not get matched. That is I mean, your student loans are gonna come due very quickly. And many of us who have student
And you
loans know.
technically can't.
You
get
can
your full
cut-
PhD.
yeah.
So my PhD is in clinical and
Yeah.
I did match. Woo-hoo. They actually use the same computer system as medical residencies.
Yeah,
Like,
they
I
do.
jokingly
Yeah.
call it the giant computer in the sky because it dictates your life. And I went to Augusta, Georgia, to a consortium of the Medical College of Georgia and a VA there. And so I defended my dissertation, which is typically any other kind of PhD.
And.
Yeah, you typically like, you shake their hand and they say, congratulations, doctor. And I just defended that in March, but I didn't finish my internship until June 30th. And so I didn't get to technically call myself a doctor until I finished that, right? And so, yeah, those are things to look at as you think about graduate schools in terms of even master's programs, like, are they helping their folks find
Yeah.
placements in the community? So for example, we work a lot with the art therapy program at EVMS, and they're really great in that all their students do 3 placements in the community with 3 different age ranges. So they all do kids, adolescents, and adults. So they get that full experience and they make sure they get those, you know, it's not like you're scrambling to find them. They get you in one. So yeah, art therapy is another option if you're someone who loves art and combining things. But again, there's possibilities we haven't even talked about in terms of the applied or the research side of psychology.
And I know that we're throwing a lot of information, but it's not like I mean, we meet with our advisees once a semester. So it's not like you have to remember all of this
Yeah.
right now, right? We're just kind of talking about the possibilities. And then as the students get kind of closer and closer to graduation, you start talking more and more about career options with them. And kind of these types of issues. So kind of once you kind of decide the basic field that you might want to go into, then it's a good idea to pick one of us that is more related. So if you want to go to clinical, or if I have students that come in and they very much want to go to the clinical route, I'll steer them towards Dr. Myers more because I don't know as much about that.
And I do the same with developmental or cognitive.
Not that you have to, right? And you can always make appointments with any of us, even if we're not your advisor. But, you know, we know more about our area, so we can help you the best in our area.
Yeah,
I
and
don't have to remember everything now.
Yeah, and our capstone course is ethics and professional issues, and a big part of that course is like, what can you do when you're graduating in a few months? And so it talks about all the different job opportunities you can have as a bachelor's, right? And things along, and like jobs people haven't even considered. Yeah,
Ethical issues associated with it, job salary ranges, you know, we
That's
cover
a big one.
all of that stuff.
Job salary ranges, I found that over the years that I've thought, a big misconception is how much money do you think you're gonna make with a bachelor's degree in psychology? If someone wants to guess, we could guess a range. What do you think about? like a range, it says that like 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80. How much money do you think bachelor's degree in psychology will bring in? Or yeah, 40? All right, you're on the low end of what usually people get, so, but very realistic, yeah. I mean, if you could make 50 to 60, but it's gonna be hard to make a lot more than that. I don't know if you guys want to correct that assumption,
No,
but.
I agree with that. I don't think it's just psychology.
Yeah,
either.
It's true more with bachelor's degrees.
Degree overall.
Yeah.
So think about your student loans. How much did you borrow? If you borrow $100,000, how much would the payment be? How much would, like, think about the finances of things as you think about graduate school. As well, and that's why these accredited programs like PhD program, where you could go from bachelor's straight to a PhD program. And again, advertising with you here for some time, but I don't know, that's my experience, but you could get in and just not have tuition because you use a fine school that just waives your tuition as a PhD.
And a lot of PhD programs will. do
And that's
that.
not just a lot.
Exchange.
Right.
First, like,
Because the research is a program department.
like additional 22,000 you get as a TA or an RA. If it's a way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things.
Finances.
Yeah, the psychology is a science. A lot of people don't think of it that way. So we are classified here under social science, and other places, other universities, we're actually classified with the natural sciences. And so for that reason, the model that's used is similar to the natural sciences. So that's a model you'll find for places like biology and chemistry, but unfortunately not necessarily for some of the humanities and whatnot, mostly because they don't have so much funding, unfortunately. The other thing that's getting a major in psychology is like you'll pretty much always be able to find a job, because unfortunately people are always going to need people who know about human behavior. And you know, if you are thinking sort of the therapy or counseling route, we need it now more than ever. You know, the past 4 years have been really hard on a lot of people, right? In terms of the sort of the devastation of the isolation and loss. I mean, we've lost over 1 million, I think coming up to 2 million people in the US alone, and we haven't reckoned with that loss, right? So like, you all were either young or not born yet, but I remember when September 11th happened, and that was like 5,000 people, and it was a great period of national mourning, right? I think when we finally let it sink in, we're gonna be needed even more, so I didn't mean to be like a downer, that's very, but basically to say like, we'll be needed.
Don't think right now the graduate school is for you, like, you can get jobs with a bachelor's, but keep in mind the salary range is gonna be sort of limited in the top end. Some people choose to work, you can work within the field, but you're not going to be like the person in charge, you're gonna be a specialist, behavioral specialist, you're going to be helping out people with masters and PhDs, you're not going to get a lot of responsibilities, maybe that's a good thing, so, you know, but you can choose later to go back if that's the thing.
And
If
there
you
are-
decide that's the thing, and you would have some experiences, but those different jobs are probably difficult to get, but it's possible.
Yeah, and actually, if I could have Dr. Ariel jump in real quick, there are jobs like beyond what you think of for psychology. So I know some people work for NASA, for example.
Yeah, so there's lots of options, especially with advanced degrees in psychology, not just the academic options, but people think I'm gonna get a PhD in psychology and I'm either gonna do the, open a clinic somewhere or I'm gonna work at a university. And there are endless options because you get a lot of skills in a PhD program. Some of the skills we talked about already in terms of like writing, statistical analysis, methodology. And where some of my colleagues have ended up, are in places like NASA, a lot of them in tech. One colleague works for Apple, can't even talk about what she works on because of the non-disclosure disagreement.
I was gonna say probably more secretive than NASA.
Makes a lot of money doing that. Amazon, one currently working for the New York Times game division, some have worked in gaming, I mean, because it's just research skills, development, skills, and kind of like fine tuning products, so. There are lots of opportunities, healthcare is another one.
Oh, yeah.
like,
Colleague works at the CDC, so in their department.
Yeah,
A former graduate, one of my first students, worked for Google and eBay, organizational development, so providing job training, masters in Iowa.
yeah, so,
From
yeah,
after going in the master's program in Iowa.
in places like Rand and project research, it's like there are lots of opportunities. And if you're thinking going that route, I guess one piece of advice that hasn't been mentioned, like when it comes to being a graduate program, consider some of the things we talked about, but it's also about fit with the research interest. But you need to find, it's more about finding a mentor that matches with the research area that you want to pursue. And not so much about like where the local university is, and I mean, sometimes we have geographical factors that we consider, but that's probably not the best thing to consider. The best thing to consider is there overlap between the interest I have in research and the mentor that I'm applying to work with, because you're gonna work closely with that person for 5+ years. Because that's realistically what a PhD program takes, is probably about 5 years and minimum to complete. We think it's 4, but it's usually 5, and it's often.
If
beyond
you're
that.
clinical, it's 6 because you have that internship year too, so.
Yes, but look for that fit and look to see if they're productive and they're publishing with their students and these kind of things, that it's like a healthy research lab and a healthy environment.
Ask them where their students are going when they finish.
Yeah,
That's another thing to consider.
Yeah, and that applies for here too. I know that you all are sort of at the beginning of your career, so some of this might be overwhelming to think about, but don't just necessarily ask the first professor you've had to be your advisor. Kind of look for, so like I'm department chair, so I'll get sort of cold emails from people who are interested in majoring, and I'd love to help those folks, but the first question they're gonna get back from me is like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Right, like what are you thinking you want to do with your psych degree? And then I try to match you with one of us based on those interests, so that you don't have to get referred for me to Dr. Monroe to talk about developmental. She's just going to be your advisor. It's just going to guide you through the whole program, right?
And by the way, if as you're going, let's say you take a class in IO and you're like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. None of us are offended if you want to switch advisors. Often, it happens relatively often, and I always feel like the students are like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I have 50 others, so I'm good. Yeah, right? Like my plate is full. So you don't ever have to be kind of worried about if it turns out that someone's going to be a better match for you, 100% okay, we're all fine with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's also, as we mentioned previously, it's a major that plays really well with other majors. So like we've had double majors, and I mean, not every major, but close to every major. Like we had for a while, a lot of English like double majors. We get a lot of bio, art, communications, arts, CJ, like I said. And so you're not limited to only being psych. If you're someone who's interested beyond, GWSS, gender, women, and sexuality studies, we get a lot of those. Yeah. Business, we're getting a lot more business in psych now, and it's a really nice marriage, because if you're thinking, I want to go into business, particularly with marketing or advertising, having those psych skills can be really helpful.
That's very, very valuable.
And like, therapeutic rec, also, we get a lot of therapeutic rec minors and majors who are minor and also double major, so. Any other questions for us about psych in general, our program in particular?
How many of you are freshmen?
Okay.
Okay,
Awesome.
so early on, and then juniors? No, any seniors in the room? Okay, all right, so you're not there yet, so it is a good point, it is very over the top in terms of information, but a good starting point. I think the message is just email your professors and ask them, we're all
Pretty friendly.
pretty friendly.
Grab us before or after class. I've started doing all my office hours remotely, so that like if you need to just like Zoom me from your car at your lunch break at your work, like you'd be amazed. Sometimes I'm also in my car, right? Like we just make it work. So I did that to try to be more flexible and open for my students. So I mean the benefits we've gotten from our experience during the pandemic, right? It's like how can we better serve y'all? So yeah, and we do have Psychi, which is the honor society, and they sometimes do events. It sort of depends on who's in charge and how enthusiastic they are.
It's been a little bit of a dry spell with events with COVID and everything. I'm hoping that will change, but I'm the advisor for Psychi. I should be sending out an email pretty soon about it for this semester, so that you just have to have pretty good grades overall in your psych courses overall GPA, and it's an honor that you get recognized for the honors convocation for making it, but
And
sometimes it's a combination. Sometimes it's a combination of just getting that honor, but also sometimes there are social events and things that take place. But
And once upon a time, we had a psychology club. Unfortunately, again, with COVID, it kind of died, but we're always glad to revive that for folks who
Like you need to be, I think, like a sophomore to join Psych-Eye, so a lot of folks will do psychology club first, but again, unfortunately, I've heard this universally from students that a lot of student organizations kind of struggled during the pandemic because it was so hard to organize, so. But just like we sometimes do events, like one of my favorite is Dr. Margarel brought in a neuropsychologist who talked about zombies. It was incredible. We talked about the brain and how that would work.
Well, and we used to march in the parade.
Oh, yeah.
And we had these little like squishy stress ball brains.
And we throw them at
You
people.
See, I think, for the night, just throw them at people in the audience and, yeah, so, yeah. I have to say, looking at the thing going on there, I was like, oh. I think it kind of faded in my memory a bit.
You want a stress ball brain, just stop on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've also in the past not only had students study abroad for a semester, but in the past we did do a study abroad course again. Sometimes the logistics of the last time I tried to plan one, we didn't get enough students to make, but it kind of worked out because we were trying doing the trip over spring break, and that was spring break 2020. So we wouldn't be able to go anyway. But we would love to do that again in the future if there's interest. Some of the places our students have studied abroad, Prague, Amsterdam, London, Australia, yeah. One of our students who studied abroad in London did a research internship while she was there, so you can certainly find those opportunities as well.
Yeah, and certainly you can access, if we do another one, or kind of the UK that I've been doing, that I did last year and doing again this year. But you can also do study abroad just generally, and use that as well. So I have a student that I'm meeting sometime today, I gotta check my email, to sign off on her study abroad. So she's a psych student, but she's gonna, I don't even know what she's doing. We'll find out. But there are lots of opportunities for that. And this is the time to take advantage of them when you have relatively, I mean, it may not feel like it to you, but the responsibilities, not that, I guess, right on your break, get worse as you get older. And so you've got more relative freedom now, right? That you can take off and you don't have to worry about your job or the kids or like all of that type of stuff. So take advantage of it.
Enjoy. Yeah, well, and we also have VWU Global with Lakeland, Japan. And I think we're trying to get some site stuff started over there, so. Well, I know some of you are gonna have classes at 1, so why don't we go ahead and disperse, but if anyone wants to come up and ask us questions individually, we'll hang out for a couple more minutes. Have you met Nick?
No, I mean,
Oh my gosh.
we've been on.
He is just like the biggest personality ever, like just so like friendly. Yeah, he'll probably sign on at like 3.